Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. So a little background. I studied abroad in Japan a little over a year ago, and I lived in dorms provided by them. The dorms were a 20-minute walk from campus, but the way to get to the campus was to simply turn right for 1 block until you come to a main intersection with a Lawson on the corner, and then walk straight for the rest of it. This is important later, so please bear with me here. There was a small shortcut that cut across the intersection that I and many others would often take, but it went behind some apartments and through a small parking lot and playground. A friend of mine lived in his own apartment close to the school, and one night I was over there watching crappy TV shows pretty late, maybe past 1 or 2 a.m. I never liked staying over no matter how late it got, cause he had a tatami mat instead of a Western-style bed. Now, I've been to lots of big cities who are known for crime rates, and even live in a moderately sized one, and I've never really felt scared walking alone at night. This wasn't a big city in Japan, and we were outside of the downtown area anyway. I'm sure you're thinking while reading this that Japan seems like a much safer country compared to America and has a much lower crime rate. However, that's not exactly true. In fact, there is an extremely high rate of sexual-related crimes, and unfortunately, I had heard that the prefecture we were in had one of the higher rates of human trafficking. So anyway, I'm walking down that long stretch of road. It's past 2 a.m. at the earliest, and there are no cars or anyone else on the road. I started getting this weird thought in my head, strangely enough, because of a tweet that I saw earlier of all things. The tweet was one of those fear-mongering videos of compilations of people just driving up in a car and immediately snatching someone up. I never pay that stuff much mind, but for some reason, I started thinking about it on my walk. And then, about 2 blocks from that singular turn that I had to make, a car drove by. Like I said, I was feeling paranoid, so I mentally checked to make sure it kept driving. But it didn't. When I passed the crosswalk to the final block before my turn, it parked on the side street that I had just crossed. I thought, okay, weird, but you're just being paranoid. Just keep walking. I had headphones on, but turned my music off and was checking the shadows at my feet to see if anyone was approaching. Someone did. I couldn't tell you if he was trying to sneak up behind me or not, because as soon as I saw the shadow, I whipped around to see him. It was a young guy, maybe 20s, but I didn't look very hard. I don't remember exactly what was said honestly, and most of it was through a heavy language barrier. I just know that I very clearly ignored this guy as best that I could and gave very blunt evasive answers. I only remember for sure he asked, "Kiss? Kiss?" And when I refused, he pointed at the dark playground at the end of the previously mentioned shortcut and said something like, "This way, shortcut." The entire time this was happening, I was thinking, just get to the Lawson, just get to the Lawson. If you don't know, it's a convenience store, and it was the only place I knew that would be open, well lit, and have another person. At that point, he started pointing towards the shortcut, and was also when we finally got close to the Lawson. I don't remember exactly what happened, if I just dipped and ran across the street to it, or if I got him to leave first and then went over. All I know is I have never been so happy to see fluorescent lights. A few seconds after I got inside, I saw the car that I had seen earlier. It definitely had multiple people in it, and it drove off down the street towards downtown and shouted something as it passed. I called another guy friend of mine who knew Japanese, just in case, and stayed on the phone with him until I got back to the dorms. Honestly, I don't know if I was just being paranoid or if this encounter was as sinister as I had imagined it. There are a lot of guys there who will assume if you're a foreigner or wearing shorts, which I think I was, thinks that you might be a prostitute. I had a couple of other encounters that were just very catcall type things, so it's not uncommon. I also know that in a previous year, our university actually had a guy who would creep around the dorms and then try to flash people. So yeah, this is a big problem here. I'm not sure which end of the spectrum of creepy it really was, but I am glad for Lawson's either way. I am a short-statured 17-year-old girl who stands out in Japan with big curly hair and foreign-looking features. Sometimes I get catcalled, get inappropriate winks, or even people creating unwarranted conversations in my everyday life. I've never felt like I was truly in danger, up until this day. I was walking in broad daylight to my nearest train station. The roads in Japan are very narrow and small, and there weren't many people on the street that I was going on. And as I turned into a long one-way sidewalk, I noticed a man staring at me through his car with an intense look. I continue walking, and he pulls up next to the long sidewalk, knowing that I would have to walk past him. I turn on my phone's video and record our conversation. He, in a very thick Nigerian accent, asks where I'm going, says I'm very pretty, and doesn't take no for an answer when I say I'm busy. Eventually, I walked off very fast and he stepped on the gas as if he was angry or offended. I call my boyfriend and continue walking on the long sidewalk, and then I see the man has blocked the exit of the sidewalk with his car. He got outside of his car and is waving at me with an eerie smile, and at this point, I'm shitting bricks. He's walking towards me and I tell him to leave me alone, and he says something like, "Are you proud?" I run away and behind me, I hear his car start up. I run into an alley and see his car turning as if he was still looking for me. And I still had a mile to walk by myself, and it was one scary walk. I still don't understand why he got out of his car, or what his intentions were. This happened a long time ago when I was in college. I was renting this one-bedroom dump of an apartment. It was tiny. The area wasn't too bad though. It was in a really quiet residential place. Despite it being small, I didn't have much else to complain about. Well, that was until all the activity happened. Weird things began to happen. For example, I woke up one morning to find a meter-long black hair in my mouth. There was an empty apartment next to mine, and I would occasionally hear a baby crying in there in the dead of the night. I regularly suffered with sleep paralysis and horrible nightmares. I lived in room 101, and I couldn't believe that I was the only person living in the block. It was quiet, real quiet. Occasionally, someone would move in, but before long they would move out. I mean, there could have been other residents for all I know. I just remember that the apartments were pretty much empty all year round. On the upside, It meant that there were always places to park and I could play my guitar as loud as I wanted without getting any noise complaints. I noticed that there were 4 apartments on the ground floor, but only 3 doors. I don't know why it was like that. I tried to figure it out. The apartments are shaped like a capital letter L, so from my apartment 101 up to 103, the doors are side by side. But there was a wall where apartment 104 should have been. The reason why I thought that there should be an apartment there was because, like I said, there were 2 floors and the layouts of the apartments were the same. And there was apartment 204 above where apartment 104 should have been. It was as if the door to apartment 104 have been covered by a wall. I tried looking in from the back, and all of the apartments in this building had balconies. There were lots of artificial plants in 104's balcony, so you couldn't see anything inside from the outside. It drove me mad. I really wanted to know what was in there. I thought about it a lot, and I arrived at the conclusion that all the creepy goings on must be related to that walled-up apartment. I couldn't get in there or even look in there, so I just kind of lost interest. I ended up living in that building for 4 years. Not by choice, I might add. College is expensive, but I finally finished college and began my job search, and after a few months of employment, I found a bigger and better place, and I prepared to move out. The timing felt right as the building had just changed hands and there were ongoing renovations. The day before moving day, I was cleaning my room and I went outside to throw out the garbage. I opened the door to head out and looked down the hall to see how the renovations were going. They were working on apartment 104 and they were breaking down the wall. I guess that the new owner of the building wanted to maximize his income by adding a new apartment. Smart move. So I threw out the garbage and headed back to my apartment. After some more cleaning, I headed to the nearby convenience store to grab something to drink. The wall was completely demolished now, and I could finally see inside, and better still, it seemed like the renovation crew was taking a break. I was thinking that this was the moment that I finally find out the cause of all the activity in the apartments. The sleep paralysis, the crying baby, all the spooky things. And my heart was pounding in my chest as I approached. I saw inside the apartment, and the place was covered with so much dust and soot, it was clear that no one had set foot there in years, maybe decades. And I could see the main room and the layout was pretty much the same as mine. The walls were black. I thought that it was just more dust, but when I took a closer look, I noticed that there was something else that were written on the walls. The letters were very small, but they were there. I think the original color of the wall in that apartment would have been white because my walls were white and the letters were white. Some letters were black though. They were almost imperceptible to the human eye. I really got a bad vibe from that place, yet I couldn't look away. It was like I was staring at something more than just letters on the wall, like there was something else in there. You know how you can look out at a body of water, and your mind conjures up the idea of a deadly animal beneath the surface, like a shark or a crocodile. It was something like that. My eyes were glued to the wall and to those letters, and I could make out what they said because they were written so small, and I didn't want to go in there. It was all in hiragana, and on the right side of the wall, I was able to make out some of the letters. Ma-sa-hiruya. It's not a word. I have no clue what it means. Although, once I read that word, I started to feel sick. It was time to leave. I wanted to be in a place where there were people, so I headed back to the convenience store. I pulled myself together after a while and then headed home. It was my last night in that building, and I am glad that it went without incident. The next morning, I was putting my moving boxes in my car and I saw that the entrance to room 104 was now covered up by some sort of tarp, so people couldn't look in there. I started to wonder if the renovation crew discovered something more sinister than I did. About 2 years after I moved out, I kind of forgot about the place. Well, that was until I was driving past my old neighborhood on a day off. I decided to go take a look at the old place for nostalgia's sake. I wondered if anyone was living in 104. I drove slowly along the back road, which the balconies faced, by the car park, and I almost crashed when I saw something pretty shocking there. 104 was walled up again, and the plastic plants were back so you couldn't look in. Everything was how it was before. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was like looking into the past. I looked at my old place and someone was living there. Laundry was hanging out on the balcony and all the other rooms were vacant. I mean, there weren't even curtains in the windows. I have so many unanswered questions. What happens in that apartment block? What was the meaning of those words? Because whatever the renovation and owner discovered in room 104 made them put everything back the way it was. What did they see in there? Does the person living in my old place have the same sleep paralysis issues? And do they hear the same strange noises as I did? One thing I do know is, I won't be going back there. I feel so creeped out by that building. This happened quite recently. I was driving home alone and I was out in the sticks. Actually, it was a mountain pass. I was high up and I remember that right enough. It had been a late night and it was already past midnight as I was making my way home. I was speeding, I will admit it. I wanted to get home as soon as possible. There were like no cars on the road, no one around and it was fine. At least, that's what I thought at that time. Then, something unexpected happened. As I sped around a corner, I saw a woman in red stood in the road. I was about to collide with her, but somehow I managed to swerve and miss her. My heart was beating out of my chest and I couldn't believe how close of a call that was. Due to the speed that I was going, I almost spun out. It was horrible. I put my car in reverse and spun around to get in the right lane for a start and then take a look to see if the woman was all right. I looked in the direction I saw her, and I saw that she was laying on the ground. I felt my heart drop. If I saw myself in a mirror, I know that I would have been as white as a sheet. So, I got out of the car after pulling it onto the hard shoulder and I raced over to her. I looked down and I saw a mannequin lying there on the road. It was the type of mannequin that you might see in an old clothing store. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is that it looked out of date and definitely out of place. I was incredibly relieved that I wasn't going to be in trouble for murder, or at the very least manslaughter. Once relief had settled in, anger came as fast as I drove that night. I was very annoyed that someone would do that. I mean, they intentionally placed that thing just at the bend of the curve. They knew that they would cause distress to drivers approaching. I picked the mannequin up and threw it to the side of the road. I may have even kicked that thing out of anger. I really can't remember. I started back to my car. And then something dawned on me. I needed some sort of reassurance because I couldn't leave the scene without knowing what the hell just happened and why. I'll be honest, I did start to believe it could be a person rather than a mannequin. I kept asking myself why to questions that I couldn't answer, and the number one question that I couldn't answer was, why was there a mannequin out here in the middle of nowhere? I was too curious. I could already hear myself explaining the story to my friends and not having a good enough ending. Not having any form of answer to the same questions they would ask me. I turned back to take another look at the mannequin. Why was it wearing red and lying in the road? I took a closer look. I am not ashamed of this, but it's a little weird. I pulled down the mannequin's clothes and I am glad I did, because I found something. I guess you could call it a clue, or there was something written on her back. There was a name, birth date, a profession, and a town name written there. I don't want to say what it was because it might be referencing to a real person. It gets a bit heavy from here on out, so fair warning if you are easily triggered. The message written on the back of the mannequin went on to say that the woman that they had referred to in the message was a victim of a violent sexual assault, and due to the trauma she suffered at the hands of her attacker, she decided to end her life the following day, presumably right where I was. I looked out towards the darkness over the guardrail. A dark drop was all I could see below. The message went on to say that the attacker will never be forgiven. I will never forgive them, was written again and again until the point that the pen ran out of ink. I was filled with a profound sadness and an overwhelming sense of horror. I don't know if it was a prank or something, but it felt real. I didn't want to be there anymore. It was at this point that I noticed that there was another car parked just out of sight. I don't know if that car was abandoned. Heaven forbid it belonged to that woman, and it hadn't been towed yet, or if it belonged to another person who positioned the mannequin out there. I think the latter. I don't know why, but I get the sense that I was being watched. I didn't drive on that mountain pass again for about a year because it really freaked me out. And when I did pass through again, I didn't see the mannequin again. This happened when a buddy and I were on our way to a ski resort. I was driving and my friend was co-pilot. He sat with the road atlas across his knees, and this happened before sat-navs and smartphones. I remember every 5 minutes, my friend was saying, "It's not much further now." I was kind of in a bad mood since the snow looked as if it was going to stop. My friend had the smart idea that if the snow was easing up, we could take a shortcut through a kind of country lane. "This is a complete failure," I said to him. "Nah, man, we're getting so close. I got a good feeling about this shortcut. It's fine," he replied. I wondered if this trip was going to be worth it or not. I thought of turning back because if there was no fresh snow, skiing wouldn't be as fun, but I couldn't just pop a U-turn on the highway. So, trying this mountain road may give me a chance to turn the car around if I needed it. I got on the mountain road and made sure that I went slow and steady. The trees were dense and in full growth, and this road was dark and basically a mud road. Some light upbeat music was playing on the radio. It was in complete contrast to the two of us in the car. We weren't speaking. I wanted to get back on the main road, so I sped up a little. Nothing but trees, no houses or anything. We were on this road for about an hour when finally we saw some signs which showed that the mountain pass was coming up. It was at this point my friend said, "Hey, look at that! There's something there!" I saw a figure of a man stood by the side of the road. I slowed down to see what was going on, and the guy by the road started waving us over. He was smiling, and I guess he looked about 30 years old. I pulled the car over and the man approached. He knocked on the passenger side window of the car. I opened the window a tiny bit, and he said, "Thank you for stopping. My car broke down. Do you think you could help me out?" I didn't see a car, so I said nothing. My friend didn't say a word either. Something was off. The man tried to jam his fingers through the gap in the window. "Hey, open it." I hit the central locking just as he was trying the door. "Hey, come on, open it." His friendly rescue me persona melted away. He was angry and aggressively trying to get in my car. He kept rattling the door. "Open it!" He then pulled a huge hunting knife out. "Get out of the car now!" At that point, I hit the accelerator and we peeled out there, leaving the man running after us. Always keep your wits about you and stay safe out there. And here are the top comments for my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.